TOK essay number 5. It's the weirdest one. You already know that. That's why you're here. Let's get an A in TOK.
Get an A in TOK.
Before we jump in the weird one, you know what to do, or maybe you don't. Download these notes. You can get them on your computer. There's a link in the description. It's got everything you need, links to dozens and dozens of examples, YouTube videos, weird things, fun things. Go ahead, stop the video, and download this document now. Okay, so we're in this document. Let's go ahead and look at the first page. If you need extra help, you can go to my Fiverr channel. And here, if you want to send me your essay, if you want to Zoom, if you want me to make a video like this just for you, I can do that. So hit me up on Fiverr at toktutoring.com. Okay, if you're looking at this document, you already went to my website and downloaded it. Here's the really exciting thing on Substack. I am putting a bunch of example essays. I've got 2 so far. Oh, thank you guys for the hearts. Oh, I did that heart. I'll give myself another one. Go ahead and check these examples out. I'm giving some great examples, some examples that are just average, some C examples so that you can see what the differences are. But hit me up at Substack. The link is here on the side and in the description. And then finally, if you want to keep in the know and get some free stuff, go to getanaintok.com/free stuff. I'll give you some examples, some outlines there, and some extra help to get you started. But let's go ahead and hop into my guide now. For every essay, I'm giving it a nickname, and this one is the weird one. To what extent do you agree with the claim that all things are numbers by Pythagoras? That's very important for this title. Sometimes it's not, it is for this one. Answer with reference to the arts and the human sciences. So I'm not going to talk about everything in the title for this one. There are so many different ways to approach this title, okay? So watch my other video where I break down the titles, where I break down the prompts. That's going to tell you about the many weird metaphysical ways that if you want to, you can break down this title. I'm going to give you the evidence in this video. There's a couple of other things to think about as we're thinking about what he means by all things. Watch this video. This is like my freak kids out about TOK video. Do numbers exist? It's by a really good YouTube channel. I think, is it Numberphile?
So what are we going to be?
Yeah. So this video, do numbers exist? It gets really weird. And now we're not talking about math. We know we're not talking about it because we're talking about what AOKs, arts and human sciences, which are like the most fun to talk about. But by understanding what Pythagoras might have been meaning by the phrase all things, you're going to really be able to interpret this in some weird ways. And then if you want to go further with Pythagoras and the Pythagoreans, they seem to me like a math cult. It's really weird. You can read this encyclopedia article to understand how much they really thought numbers were in all things. Because we could say he's speaking metaphorically here, but when you learn about the Pythagoreans, they might not have been thinking metaphorically. Now, before we look in the arts, remember, we're saying to what extent do you agree? And so we want to be thinking about examples that agree, examples that disagree, and then if we're shooting high, we want to find things in the middle, things that partially agree or things that partially disagree. So this first example here is a direct disagreement with Pythagoras. So I disagree strongly, or I agree to no extent. I would probably say I disagree to a strong extent. So this resource is pretty much required viewing. This article called Pythagoras Was Wrong directly addresses claims made by mathematicians and demonstrates why music cannot be made up by numbers, which is going to contrast with a lot of the arts examples that I'm about to give you. I'm a musician, and I gave a lot of music examples, but this I found at the end, and it disagrees with everything that I kind of thought about music. So it's talking about how there are no universals when it comes to music. We might think, oh, minor chords always sound scary. Well, Cambridge, they did this study, and they found that that was not the case. So here's a YouTube video and the actual research article. So what you want to do with this, and this is true for every example I'm giving you here, start with this article, the easy to read summary where it just tells you kind of what they found. But then what you want to do is you want to quote not the abstract, but the actual PDF here. Whenever I give you academic research here, and I'm giving it to you a lot, go ahead and quote this. But it's fine to learn about it from the summaries from YouTube videos. That's perfectly fine. Throw that in your bibliography. It makes you look smarter, but quote this. Okay, can we measure the arts? I don't know if I'd use this as an example. I wouldn't use this as a main example, but this is a classic scene from Dead Poet Society where they try to quantify, put a number, actually, and it's a shape of how great a work of art is. It might be really cool for an opening. It's kind of distorted because it's like technically a Hollywood movie, but yeah, it's fun. And they try to say, here's what creates good art. And can you quantify that? Maybe not. But if we could, we could say that maybe the way that we understand math could be made up in numbers. I'm sorry, the way that we understand arts can be expressed through numbers, which would then say numbers are in all things. Where numbers appear in the arts, this is going to be the most often used example. So if it's September right now and you're searching for an A, you're not going to use this example. If it's February and you just got to get this thing done to get your diploma, take this. It totally works. So when we talk about the golden ratio and the rule of thirds, these are mathematical measurements, mathematical formulas that appear all throughout works of art.
Hey guys.
This is a video talking about how the golden ratio works. And then if you want to sound smart, this article talks about the differences between the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. I'm not going to lie, I thought they were the same, but this will make you sound really smart. But this is a very direct example of there are numbers in the arts. Like I said, I'm a musician, so this next example, how numbers appear in music, is the first thing that popped in my head. And even though we can talk about notes or chords with letters, A, B, C, D, E, and F, you can also talk about them in numbers. If you're a musician, this will be a lot easier, but I found this really cool online tool that shows you the most popular chord progressions and how simple numbers like 1, 5, 6, 4 appear. Like all of these songs use the exact same chord progressions, 1, 5, 6, 4. You'll need to learn a little bit about how this works if you want to write about it if you're not a musician. But if you're a musician, look at this. They got 500 songs, and there's way more than this, that all use the same chord progression. So the way that specifically popular music works, you really could say that numbers are in all of those songs. The circle of fifths is black magic. I don't totally understand it, but if you can be able to understand it and write about it, it is just totally wild. It's a way of how music and music theory works, and it's continuing that idea that each note is a singular number, but then as you explore and go up a certain interval, the music theory just gets really weird. I'm not even going to try to explain it. Ooh, look, a GIF. But if you want to use this, this is probably the strongest example of numbers being in music. Here is an example that could be used a lot very well or very poorly. While it's important to not throw common answers into your paragraphs with no research, groundbreaking works of art that invented new genres really can't be quantified with numbers. When we have not just a great new quality thing, but when we talk about a new genre, a completely new art form, that can't be quantified because it has no relation with other things. It came out completely from someone's imagination. So Duchamp's Fountain, Picasso's Guernica, and Banksy's Girl with a Balloon will all be overused for this. These are groundbreaking, genre shifting, but everybody knows them. And if you don't want to do research, these are what you're going to talk about. But notice that I didn't link to these. So what about the first motion picture? The first photograph, actually, rap and rock and roll were both genres invented through other genres. How could that be musical? I just don't think we can say when somebody invented jazz that they did it through numbers. So this is a really good way to disagree with the title as well, after a couple of examples that really show numbers inside of music. This is another great one that disagrees with the title. We can explain how music works, but can the meaning be expressed numerically? I would say no, and there's really no way to do that. I can say, here's why the song might sound happy, and talk about numbers and music theory. But if I could looking at the words, I don't think so. So my example for this, I found a playlist on Spotify of sad songs that sound happy. There's no way for numbers to explain what this means. It's only in the language. And I don't think that we could really say that numbers are in language when we're talking about poetry, songwriting. My last example is actually from the human sciences, but it could be connected to art. So feel free to use this however you want to. These scientists here believe that we could chart and classify all human expression and emotion, and they gave codes to it. So this could be tied to the arts as a way to argue that we can use numbers to explain the meaning of art. So basically, if you wanted to disagree with this, you could talk about both of these. If all human emotion can be classified, and a lot of people don't think so, then can even the intangible things like emotions and the severity of certain emotions be numbers. So this is where it gets, again, this is the FACS, just the Wikipedia. Yeah, this is where it gets weird. I have a link to the academic paper, but this is the numbers that they're using to say certain emotions are communicating certain things. Is this universal or not? There's a lot of disagreement behind this. So that was kind of our link from the human sciences, from arts to human sciences. So this is a great example. A lot of people use this, but I would not say that this is overused. Amazon and other companies tries to find numbers in resumes, and they fail. So Amazon famously tried to use AI to scan resumes in the hiring process, which resulted in massive amounts of sexism in the hiring process. Because when they were building the code was built on sexist hiring data. Amazon was already sexist. So here I have an article from the BBC talking about how they stopped. But here's where it gets weird. Amazon stopped. They said, but you know what? It's still happening today. I experienced it. I had a friend, see, they're still doing it, but it says, this article from the World Economic Forum, great source, says when you're using AI, it doesn't have to be so inhumane. So what happens right now, and as you graduate and go into the workforce, AI is scanning resumes for certain keywords. If you don't have that keyword, you don't even get sent to the HR hiring manager. It is crazy. It is wrong, but that's what's happening. So we are using numerical code and just binary yes, no to say this person is good for the job or this person is bad for the job, which is pretty crazy. This is going to be a very strong point, and you could probably build your entire essay, your human sciences section around this point. The human sciences focuses mostly on qualitative data. Now, that is not true for everything. For example, economics, which demonstrates and reports things that cannot be explained or expressed. I'm going to write expressed with numbers and show that numbers can't be in all things. False memories are an example of a study that goes beyond numbers. It shows how humans are complex and often irrational. So we can't explain somebody making up something through numbers. This is the actual report here. I'm giving such good examples this year. This is great. So let's see. It shows that humans are complex. This is not numerical, as numbers could explain why people are so confident when they are wrong. So when we're talking about the natural sciences and animals, we really could say some of that behavior is expressed or explained or can be predicted numerically. I don't think we can with humans, because humans, we don't work right. And these two examples are really great demonstrations of that. So we talked about quantitative and qualitative data. There may be coming up a third kind of data. This is like cutting edge stuff right here. Quantizing data could be the third kind of data in the human sciences. So this article and study uses ChatGPT to turn qualitative data into something a bit more numerical. So we're taking the stuff that can't be turned into numbers, then using code to try to turn it into numbers. So this could disagree with everything else that you study, and people also disagree with this. But while they are able to succeed in some things, the authors do identify that human nuance and interpretation are required. So check out this study and you can look at the implications of this. Look, you can download the entire thing right here. You don't have to read the whole thing. If you don't know, you plug this into ChatGPT, get it to summarize it for you. Check the pages to make sure ChatGPT didn't make it up, because that's happened to me. But this is a great way to look at things, and this is going to be a perspective that is not yes, no. Propaganda, which I love for TOK, only for TOK, and persuasion cannot be numbers. So similar to the previous example, when governments use propaganda to spread and promote disinformation, this demonstrates the need for qualitative, not quantitative study. Here's one example that I found in Russia, one in China, and one globally. So note how these reports, though, and this is where you can agree to a strong extent, but not completely, how even though they're talking about qualitative data, they still try to express it numerically. So that is a really interesting way to look at things. So here we're talking about, again, humans, we can't be explained perfectly. We do mess up. We do believe and claim that falsehoods are truth. But then that's one aspect of what we can study that can't be quantified. But then we say, oh, I'm going to try to quantify it anyway. So a really interesting thing to look at what's studied, but then also look at the scientists who are studying it there. Can ChatGPT perform its own experiments? A study at Cornell recently tried to use ChatGPT to replicate famous studies, which is something that they always try to do. Humans have been doing that as well. That's mini labs too. And if this is successful, it could demonstrate that models and numbers can encapsulate human behavior. This is interesting because ChatGPT is acting as the human, which would mean that humans can be predicted. That's really scary. This is a great example here. How big data can quantify human behavior. So this example demonstrates a way that human scientists are trying to use many different kinds of data, metadata, big data, to collaborate and explain to predict human behavior. So it's not doing one study, it's doing a study of studies. That's called a meta study. Sounds cool, you sound smart when you say that. But again, the authors don't say that it's a magic bullet. So they might say numbers are in many things. Numbers are in a lot of things and they are very helpful. But while this would agree to some extent, it's not saying that numbers are in all things. So this is a great example to say that I am somewhere in the middle of the extent to which I agree. And remember, every single point needs to say I agree to this extent. Okay, the last example, how to properly treat qualitative data, which wraps it all up. That's why I put this at the end. This article directly addresses trying to find numbers in all things and can collaborate with many of the examples here that promote the use of qualitative data in the human sciences. As we get more strength from AI, which is number-based, is it best to use that to try and find numbers in humanity? Or should we just not try to find numbers in all things and look at things with more interpretation, with more nuance, and with a more human touch? I don't know the answer, but what you want to do is when you find out all of these examples, when you read this, come to your own conclusion, and that can go in the conclusion. Because at the end, at the very end, in your concluding paragraph, you don't want to summarize. You want to say, I agree to this extent, but here's what it means. If I'm going to do science, if I'm going to create art, here's how I would approach that artwork, that study, knowing that numbers aren't in all things or numbers are in all things. So you can directly apply this to something that you do personally, something you do for fun, or something that you do in school, because I think most people have to take science, okay? So that is a lot of resources. Remember, you can send me your essay. You can even send me your draft or your outline. I will do that for a discount. I can even make a video for you. So go ahead and hit me up, toktutoring.com, and I will help you out. I hope that TOK sucks a little bit less than it did at the beginning of this video. I'll see you next time.